Yo, this has been a busy month in the world and a very, very busy month at the Dopest Church on the planet. I mean, like, who would have ever thought that this series, this month, June, Do the Right Thing, that we would have had this planned out 8 months ago and that it would be so timely to speak to what we're in the midst of, right? Which is like gonna go down in history likely as the greatest civil rights movement of the 21st century. This has been a very, very busy month. We started out the month mourning the loss of George Floyd and still dealing with the loss of Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna Taylor. And we just jumped straight into the work. And so we marched through Bronzeville with Pastor Chris Harris and Bright Star Church and Community Group. Well, I don't know the official number, but there were thousands of folks. We were marching through Bronzeville down King Drive. What a beautiful sight. Just showing that our faith and the gospel lines up with social justice. We did the March for Us, organized by Ashley Munson. We donated money to help make that march happen from CityPoint Community Church. It kicked off in the South Loop across the street from Jones High School, and we went over to Daly Plaza right in front of City Hall to make our demands heard. It was a beautiful display of next generation millennial leadership right here in Chicago. Props, shout out to Ashley Munson and her team for doing a phenomenal job putting that whole thing together. We kicked off our Do the Right Thing series with a very provocative sermon entitled Becky, a sermon on race, privilege, and forgiveness. And we got straight into talking about white female privilege, our struggles and our challenges with it as people of color, and that while we need to absolutely call out everything that needs to be called out, and call white women who would leverage their privilege that way, call them out on that, but also do the hard work in our heart to be able to love and forgive despite that. And so that was a super challenging sermon. If you haven't seen it, you need to go back and check that one out. Got a ton of great feedback, and for everybody that shared some feedback, thank you all so much for that. We moved on from there, and in week 2 of the sermon series, we got into another provocative week with the sermon titled Dear Black Elite. I was absolutely convicted by the Dear Black Elite sermon and just like the reality that we need to be centering the poor and make sure that what we don't end up with from this movement is more black faces in high places and more privileges going to the black elite. Those of us that are already experiencing a lot of the advantages and whose life, although it might be marred by racism and systemic racism and injustice, like we get to experience racism and then go to bed in our nice homes and not be food insecure. We still are nervous when we see the police pull up behind us, but like we are driving luxury cars that we are getting nervous in. And so wanted to make sure that I challenged us that as we get invited to the table to discuss what change looks like in government, in our organizations that we work for, that we make sure that we're centering the poor, that we are pushing for a +1, right? To be able to either bring their voices or bring their bodies to those meetings so that they can speak for themselves, because we have limited proximity, let's admit it, to what black poverty and those that are deeply under the hand of oppression are experiencing. And so then we moved into the third part of the series. And so we came for the Evangelicals on this one, Dear Evangelicals. And what the Lord was pushing for on that sermon is just like, hey, anybody that is anti-justice is anti-Jesus. And anybody who would attempt to divorce the struggles of those that are trying to lift themselves from oppression, anybody that would divorce that struggle from God's struggle and God's flight has no idea about the gospel. And so this sermon was a push for us to make sure that our theology is tight and that our religion isn't being used recklessly like so many people are. So many Trumpists are using their religion recklessly to support some garbage and some foolishness that is very hurtful and harmful to other people and trying to wrap religion around it to justify it. Some of y'all came out for the meetup. I hadn't seen some of y'all in forever except your digital presence. It was great to see y'all. We had What a Jerk out there with their jerk taco truck. It was phenomenal. The food was delicious, and we had a good time just hanging out with each other. Thank you for that. Don't forget about Akimini Uwan, who on Juneteenth was with us on IG Live doing a Juneteenth 1-hour celebration. with us, and also Melissa took part in interviewing her, and Asia with the introduction. We also kicked off the 22 Tuesdays. I cannot forget about that. We decided the 9th of June through Election Day, those 22 Tuesdays, we were going to pray and fast, not for new cars, new houses, and like an end to our student loans, but we were going to pray and fast for some political change, right? Like we wanted to see God do something supernatural on Election Day by giving us a new president. And so we decided for 22 weeks, we were going to pray and fast on Tuesday for God to give us new leadership. And y'all been killing the game with the prayer. The movement is growing. The goal is 1,000, and we are well on our way there. It's been a busy month at the Dopest Church on the planet, and we are just getting started. This summer is going to continue to be dope. Thank you for investing in us. I hope that you see that as you pour into this ministry, as you invest in this ministry, that we are putting those dollars to work and also your prayers to work to take things to the next level. Awesome month, exhausting month, but we're going to keep it going. Peace.